Hello, Kitty Vickies, or anybody who may be watching this. I am Kitty Sugawara, and, well, I'm about to stream something kind of special, considering how long it's been. Well, it's been a long time coming since this has been around. People have wanted this, Type Moon fans specifically, and it came out last week. And I forgot about it. I forgot that it came out last week. If I didn't, I would have streamed it sooner. But hey, what can you do? Better late than never, I guess. Now, what I'm about to stream is Witch on the Holy Night, which finally came out worldwide. Yes, finally. About time that an official English release, or at least a release in English, came out officially. Finally, okay. So the original version came out in 2012. There was a group named Hollow Moon. They were working on the English translation of the PC version. Not sure if they had any hand in this at all. Maybe not. Maybe this is entirely Type Moon's doing. But you know what? Better late than never. Finally, Mahoyo officially, a Type Moon visual novel officially released in the States. No relation to Hollow Moon? Sure. That explains a lot. Or at least... Actually, hold on here. I'm surprised that chat is not actually popping up. Hold on a bit. This is... Would you excuse me for a beat? Actually? I need to check this out. Because it is very strange that chat is not popping up on screen. I should have tested this before. But you know me, I'm kind of a ding-dong. So, let's see here. Overlay URL. Let's see. I'm sorry I had to, kind of do this, so... I know. This is very awkward for me. I'm sorry. I know. It's very awkward that I have to, do some additional maintenance while I'm streaming, but... It's very weird that chat is not popping up on screen as it should be. Because it should be popping up. Not. Hold on. This is very awkward. Did you thought Mirror Moon did Mahoyo? No? Oh, you're talking to Kevin. Sorry about that. I didn't know you were talking to Kevin. Hold on a bit. I know, this is very awkward. I'll get to the game momentarily. Admittedly, I am using remote play to stream Mahoyo from my PS5. I don't have a wired connection going from the PS5 to my laptop here. So you're going to have to, it's a visual novel, so it shouldn't be too bad as far as quality-wise, unless things get really heavy, visually, in which case things might get hairy. But dude, I'm surprised you have a console to play it. Yeah, I have a PS5. Used to have a Switch, but I sold it. Hold my Switch. Although you're gonna enjoy this game, it's freaking great. I hope so. Right? I hope it's pretty. I hope this. I considering Kinoko Nasu's behind this. You know, Type Moon, and all. I expect the writing. I expect there to be horror elements. If not, then at least like thriller elements that Nasu's known for doing a pretty good job at. Um, just yeah. Let me test something real quick.
Do not fear a man that spams 1,000 memes. Instead, fear a man that spams a meme 1,000 times.
Okay, so the alerts work, but the chat doesn't work. This is very, very weird. It worked last time. I tested this out, but now it's being a dingus. Being a dingus chat. Wow. Yeah. I'll say this, it's the best looking visual novel ever created, and not hyperbole. The production values are like 100 out of 10. Production values are so great, I don't think it even needs an anime, to be honest. Interesting. I love the horror elements Nasu puts in his writing, getting flashbacks to Suki and Shiro body horror. I hope there's something something like that in this novel. If only because, well, it's Nasu. Wait, hold on. I think I might have something on screen. Okay, for some reason the text is all screwed up. Hold on. Very weird. Very weird. This is very strange. I can't believe I have to do maintenance like now of all times, but fascinating. This is okay. This is very, again, this is so weird. You guys like continue to chat for a bit. I need to figure this out, because this is not how it should be going, right? Like the text box is like on screen, but the actual text is not. This is very strange. Oh my god. can't tell how weird it is if you don't show us. Huh. The... Jeez. Louise. It was working the last time. Like, the actual text, like, you know, for the, like, chat on screen was, like, working, like, last time I streamed. But this is absolutely bonkers. That it's, like, completely, like, like, crapping the bed right now. Hold on. Let me see here. Switching scenes doesn't seem to do anything either. The gray box, but there's supposed to be like text. Like I see text on the layout editor on Stream Elements, but the actual like text is not popping up. This is not cool. Streamlabs, or Stream Elements rather. Stream Elements is like crapping the bed right now. Yeah, it is shitting the bed. I should... Okay, hold on a bit. I'll be right back. Yeesh. Okay. This is... well, how embarrassing. How embarrassing. Hold on, let me try to add like a new text box. Like on here. Like instead, like let me see if adding a new text box entirely like does the trick. No Wester. Let's see. No. There should be text. Technical difficulties going on. This is stupid. You are stupid, OBS. You are a big, stupid dum-dum, OBS. Dumb OBS. It is so... you are unbelievable. I hope you... is it because I updated it? I didn't update it like... no, I did I think I updated it yesterday. Jesus Christ. I'm having a DSP moment. I'm having a DSP moment where Stream Elements is just shitting the bed. Session data. Okay. I guess I have to continue on as is. Because it looks like it's not like clearing up for whatever reason. Okay. I guess I'm just gonna have to continue on like this, Kitty Vickies. Stream Elements is having a bad day. Having a bad day. Anyway, let's actually go into it. There we go. Now, I did start it up, you know, just to like test out the remote play. If I hit return, though, it should return us back to the very beginning. Witch on the Holy Night. There we go. All right. Now, it looks bad, but that's because I'm using remote play. It's a visual novel. It's no high-speed action, at least not yet. So it should be watchable, I hope. Let me get rid of the gray box. You're right. Gray box eliminated. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Hold on. There we go. Now I can see the chat. I resized the window so I can see the chat and I can see remote play. I have 0 experience with Mahoyo. You are correct. Oh shit. How embarrassing. Pretend this is not happening. Right? Pretend everything is going smoothly. Everything is smooth. Everything is nice. Everything is not shitting itself. Because I'm using remote play. It was okay, let's go. It was a winter's day, 8 years prior when it happened. That solemn morning when she understood the value of life for the very first time. Her home was nestled on the side of a mountain. Around it was nothing but inhospitable wilderness. She had no neighbors or childhood friends to speak of. Things like traveling to school or playing outside were more trouble than they ought to be. Indeed, with its pure water and bright stars, it was a place rich with memories both frustrating and halcyon. Or is it halcyon? I'm a dingus. That was only during summer, though. Winters in those mountains were extremely frigid, each morning more severe than the last. Her father would drive her to the train station, after waiting 10 minutes for the engine to warm up and the iced-over windows to clear. Mind starting up the car for me? Her father would savor his morning coffee, leaving her to venture outside and rev the engine. Out the front door she would go, reversing the garden with icy breath, until she reached that old sedan. As always, she inserted the key, then started the ignition. The engine rumbled to life. Just as she proudly finished that humble task she'd done so many times before. Lollies. A shrill scream pierced the air. She knew, even though it wasn't human, that the feeble sound was a cry of agony. A few moments passed. Her father came out and opened the hood of the car. Creaking fan belts. A monstrous-looking engine. And something that didn't belong. Jesus Christ, I'm dead. That's me. And they ran me over, I think. And something that didn't belong. There was a cat. A mother by the looks of it. And her 2 kittens. Okay, like this thing like went from like maybe like 30 miles per hour to like 200, like real quick. 3 cats had been huddling for warmth in the engine's compartment. Okay. The mother cat was missing its head. I don't know what to talk about. The head's right there. Intact. Cat still has a head, right? One of the kittens had been mangled beyond recognition by the engine belts and surely died instantly. The other kitten, its face half covered in blood, panted faintly. It desperately clung to its mother, or rather, the chunk of meat that was its mother, with the last bit of life it could muster. Poor things. Her father lamented their plight. The previous night had been especially cold. After he had returned home yesterday, the cats must have snuck under the hood, drawn by the warmth of the engine. They had slept next to the engine and awoken to a storm of spinning belts. Jeez. Cars in the 80s were not seated particularly well, so this was not unheard of. It's okay. It wasn't your fault. No, you know, it's definitely someone's fault. Whoever's fault it is. Her father's voice seemed distant. She could only make out a small tuft of the kitten's gray hair. The rest of it was caked in blood of its mother and brother. I can see its skull! Rad! Radical! The fragile life of a speckled kitten. Trembling and possibly blind, it continued to nuzzle against its dead mother's chest. It's metal. So fucking metal. Huh. Wait. She took the kitten into her arms and ran deep into the mountains to her grandfather's house. It was because she was overcome with regret? Or was it the shock of grief? Years later, she still wasn't sure. Fighting back the welling tears, she burst into her grandfather's workshop. Her grandfather was a magician who could do anything. She had never seen magic. She knew that magic was a fantasy straight out of fairy tales, but so was her grandfather. She had to find him. He was the only one who could help. Suppose you want me to alter this kitten's fate. The cave-dwelling magician said indifferently. This kitten needs our help, she pleaded. Whether it was a simple task or a Herculean labor, her grandfather would not say. He simply granted the girl's childish wish like a machine. Yeah! Oh! Ooh, what's this? Oh no, the girl said. Before she knew it, however, she was holding a tiny corpse in her hands. Its fur was cold. The warmth of life had left its body, and the tears she had fought so hard to hold back poured from her eyes. Regret spread through her chest like an endless gray sky. We were too late. Some things cannot be undone. Her mind struggled to come to grips what had just occurred. Okay, let me see here. Her mind struggled to come to grips what had just occurred. Okay, I would rewrite that as her mind struggled to come to grips with what had just occurred, but then again, hey, this is like Type Moon's first official like Western released visual novel. So what can you do? The last 10 minutes were a total blank. Who she met, what she had known, it was all as if it never happened. The only thing that she was sure of was that life, once extinguished, never returned. Is somebody there? Who's there? Who's there? Seriously, who's there? That day, it was her mistake that gave birth to me. Indeed, whatever occurred that day, it was a day of nostalgia and longing. This is the fairy tale of 8 years ago, the day they first met, that no magic can ever bring back. Ooh. Hold on. Kitty cough. What a prologue indeed. Holy shit. Arrogant, greedy, and able only to destroy. I must be a wolf. I don't have regrets. There's no looking back. If my pride has left you behind, my sincere condolences. But at any rate, I suppose it's my fate to die at the hands of Little Red Riding Hood. That was one hell of a prologue, I gotta say. That was like, I was not expecting that at all. You know? Holy shit. Strange one. Chapter. I assume this is chapter 1 now? It was a quiet morning. From her bed, she could see the sky was a ashen watercolor gray. Thermometer displayed 43 degrees Fahrenheit, a rather unforgiving temperature for November. You haven't seen anything yet? Don't spoil. I want to be surprised. Let's see. The thermometer displayed 43 degrees Fahrenheit, a rather unforgiving temperature for November. Her stomach woke her up with a growl, pathetically reminding her that she had completely missed breakfast. But lazy mornings like today's were, for her, blessing. Yo, Sean, busybody. Yo, what up, man? The chat doesn't work. The chat box was being a dingus, so unfortunately you cannot appear on screen. But welcome to the stream. It was already well past 8 in the morning. On any ordinary weekday, tardiness would be unavoidable, but today classes were canceled in commemoration of the school's anniversary. Gratefully, she had every intention of making it easy for the first time in ages. Outside the window was a gloomy gray, and it reminded her more of evening than morning. It wasn't a pleasant morning by any stretch of the imagination. But having been up all night until just 3 hours ago, she couldn't care less about the weather outside. All she cared about was more sleep. As long as she could spend her morning in bed, what was happening outside was of no concern to her. Very nice model and voice, thank you. Thanks, Prestris. Sorry, I apologize. Prestris, Pregistran. I'm my mouth. I have a fang for a reason. This fang gets in the way. I apologize. Pretristan. 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 Yes. Pretristan. Anyway, she shut off the curtains. Shut the curtains, I mean. Then closed her eyes and tried to let sleep reclaim her. I like a nice, uneventful dream for 2 hours, thank you. Blissful slumber found her soon enough. Her consciousness faded. However, her simple request would be mercilessly refused. A faint but shrill sound lingered in her ears. It was the unmistakable ring of a telephone. Much of her chagrin, out of her habit, her eyes popped open. Oh, come on. Why today of all days? The telephone was situated in the foyer on the first floor. Answering it meant walking down a 30-foot corridor and going down a flight of stairs. In her sleep-deprived state, that distance seemed somewhere between incredibly far and astronomically far. The phone's incessant ringing continued. She knew the caller would eventually give up if she ignored it, but she chose to fight the urge. Why doesn't Alice answer it? She thought her housemate would get it, but she soon had to abandon all hope. The realization struck her that her housemate did not have the day off from school and was likely in class at her prestigious little hilltop academy. The caller proved incredibly persistent. That persistence made the volume of the ringing seem even louder. I'm trying to sleep here. Asshole! She was left with no choice but to get up, throw a top on, and leave the room. This is such a comfy stream, suits well with the afternoon tea. Well, thank you. I'm trying to, go for that kind of vibe. She was left with no choice but to get up, throw a top on, and leave the room. God, it's cold! She rubbed her hands together to warm her numb fingers. The mansion's heating system was inadequate, to say the least, which meant that winter was the very worst of uninvited guests. When's the last time you did a VN playthrough stream, Hollow? A while. I mean, last time, what? I tried to go through, actually, I tried to, reread Fate Stay Night for a little bit. But that was a while back. I should probably do that again at some point. Which meant that winter was the very worst of uninvited guests. Never more so than the dreary morning as this, when one didn't need to use a thermometer to know how cold it was. The mansion sat at the mountains, and was surrounded by dense forest. Winter always arrived here first, before moving on to nearby towns. The robotic ring of the telephone reverberated throughout the long hallway. The mansion's furnishings had been so perfectly maintained that it made the place feel unlived. It seemed lonelier than it did splendid. Coupled with the dreary morning, it could have passed for a haunted house. Well, it is a haunted house, I suppose. It's too large for just the two of us. She counted more than 30 rings since it first began. The caller either had a lot of free time on their hands or had a good understanding of the house's circumstances. She had a strong hunch that it was the latter. The window above looked out onto a gloomy sky. She hastened to catch the relenting ring of the act as soon as possible, though she had a feeling that her happy morning might come to a close the moment she caught it. It was here that a series of incidents began. Apologies for the lack of romance into this tale, or whether it was objectively true or merely superstition. Supposition, it was always of gloomy and unassuming beginnings that extraordinary events were set into motion. Ooh, what's going on? Ready to get an intro? Oh fuck, an intro! I'm gonna shut up now. Yo, welcome back, Kevin. We just passed the prologue and now we're at this intro. Yes, you are. Sorry for the lack of romance. Sounds like sorry, weebs. Picking your waifus isn't in this game. Limau. Already saw the prologue, so that's cool. Yep. Can't choose your waifu in this. I assume that means that there's no, like, choices, really? Does that mean there's no choices in this one? Yep, it does. I think it does take place in the 80s. AKA the best decade. Any choices open after main story is played? Oh, I hope so. It makes up for no choices and being insane production values wise. It's great story regardless. Well, I hope so. It is Nasu. Like, of course it's gotta be. Right? Oddly how I want to structure my VN, to be honest. LOL. I feel the lack of 80s style off-puts me since it takes place there, but I'm weird. No, you're not weird. You're just a weeb. Like me. We're both weird. Or rather, okay, we're both weird, but it kind of cancels out, right? Weird plus weird equals not weird. Somehow. There's some weird mathematics that, I can't really think about right now. I'm a dum-dum. Oh, the 80s art style? It would be interesting if it actually did, like, do that, right? Like, to kind of reflect the age. But you know what? If it works. The style works. So it's just like how, but less suicide rather than perms and weird neon everywhere. Huh. Also, did have 1996 manga, so it would be interesting. I mean, Oh, yeah, I mean Takeuchi. Okay. It's a shame that the text box just decided to not work. You guys would be on here on the screen. Anyway, the rain had subsided somewhat by the time she reached the school gate. Sunlight seemed to be playing peekaboo behind the clouds in the distance. It looked like it might be cleared up by early afternoon. Not if it has anything to do with me, though. The weather reflected her luck. On top of being forced out of the house at such an early hour, she had to suffer through a winter rain. I'm getting a bad feeling about this. The sinking feeling had only grew as she passed through the entrance and headed inside. Ooh boy. She didn't encounter any other students along the way. Nor did she see anyone taking part in club activities either. The reception desk had a faulty faculty room that simply read, "Faculty closed." The school had given all of its students the day off. It's hard to believe Nasu claimed to write Mahoyo after being inspired by the first few episodes of Evangelion? Huh. Really now? What's the relation? What? I assume Mahoyo has been a long time coming for Nasu, as far as like having the story in his head or something, and only like later being able to write it. People with issues, yeah, I like in that case, big issues indeed. Also, one guy and two girls. I guess in that case, I guess you could like find a relation there somewhere. The school had given all of its students a day off, except those explicitly summoned, like her. Hold on, let me calibrate my model real quick. There we go. Or rather, a fact that irked her more and more as the minutes passed. She opened the door to the faculty room and headed toward the desk she had visited a number of times before. The man at the desk wore a plain shirt and suit that were nonetheless neatly pressed. Let me raise the remote play volume, 70%. Here we go. Slim framed glasses adorned his face, giving off an amicable yet cunning air. The mild-mannered image this mid-20s man presented clashed with the cigarette he smoked. He didn't appear to have noticed her yet. Mr. Yamashiro? Wait, Yamasiro. Yamasiro? Okay, I get the feeling that should be Yamashiro. That's like a typo. Is it? Okay, anyway. She closed the door with a bang. Showing no response to the sudden sound, Mr. Yamasiro lifted his head. Hey there. Good morning, Miss Aozaki. I guess this means you got the call. Yes, they called me at home about an hour ago, out of the blue. The H is gone because it's Hepburn Japanese translation. Okay. I wish I knew what that was. I get the feeling I should. Anyway, yes, they called me at home about an hour ago, out of the blue. Having graduated from this high school himself, Mr. Yamasiro was not much older than the rest of the students. But the sound of H is so it's cool. I'm just gonna call him Yamashiro, because I don't know. Yamasiro sounds kind of strange. I mean, I don't know Japanese, particularly, but get the feeling that Yamasiro is some kind of like something that shouldn't be as it is. For that reason, the students preferred him over the other teachers. He always had something interesting to talk about and kept conversations casual. In fact, he seemed like an older student than a teacher, but she unfortunately didn't share her fellow students' fondness of him, or him. She was of the opinion that teachers should come across as more austere. Hold on a bit. Austere. More austere. Yeesh. What is up with me? Austere. Anyway, like an iron fist that could inspire both love and hate in equal measure. Not like a buddy to joke and pal around with. It was the exact opposite of how she felt a teacher should be. It was only natural that her manner towards him would be forced and unfriendly. Not that she'd ever been wired to make friendly small talk. Oh, she's autistic then. That's how it works, right? I'm autistic. I should know. Anyway, you're in a foul mood today. Today? I'm like this every day. The matter-of-fact answer perfectly matched the displeasure displayed on her face. Her bad mood from having to get up early and the tiredness from staying up late must have collectively made her look positively adversarial. If you say so, just go easy on our guest, okay? Be honest, we're not completely sure how to deal with him yet. About that, you want to tell me what the hell's going on? Because I have no clue. Mr. Yamashiro met her piercing eyes. He finally understood the reason behind her tone, and slowly put out his cigarette. Let's start at the beginning. What'd they tell you over the phone? Just that I'd be introduced to a transfer student. They were a little hazy on the rest, though. One of Mr. Yamashiro's eyebrows stood up, impressed with the brevity of her answer. You could see that she was angry, not because she had been called to school on her day off, because she had been told why she was here. Mr. Yamashiro chuckled sympathetically. If this was all a joke to you, perhaps I should just go home. Wait, I didn't mean to laugh. This is not a practical joke. We could really use your help. So there really was a transfer student. Yes, but he has, how should I put it, difficult circumstances. His name is what the hell? Sojiro. Hold on. Let me look at the Sojiro. It's supposed to be Sojiro. I'm not. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just not used to Sojiro being spelled like that. You know, in Romanji, or rather Hepburn, or whatever. Sorry. His name is Sojiro, and he's a bit, well, peculiar. So we thought someone around the same age would be best suited to show him the ropes. Sojiro Shizuki. Okay. She threw him an unamused look. It was negligent of them to be pushing teaching duties on her, but she did wonder how exactly this transfer student was peculiar. Maybe it meant the student had behavioral problems or was difficult somehow? But peculiar? She didn't have the slightest idea of what that meant. You didn't hear a teacher call someone that every day. She had her doubts, but swept them aside for now. Yeah, Hepburn Japanese is weird, but apparently it was Type Moon dictated directly for translation. It makes me wonder how a Hollow Moon would have done it. I don't know. I never read the Hollow Moon translations before, personally. So, Hepburn is the normal way, the way we want it to be. This is Kunare Shiki. Huh. You need to get your Switch emulator to work. Maybe. I mean, you could go ahead and, like, watch along or read along if you want. Going at a, relatively steady pace. Oh yeah, Kunre Shiki. Who's Kunre Shiki? Got them flipped around. How so? Anyway, she had her doubts but swept them aside for now. Kunre Shiki is the name for the translation choice. Interesting. We're dealing... Okay, it looks like we're not dealing with, like, a typical translation then. As far as, like, like, getting things, like... I guess this is, like, special? This is a special translation, then. Kunai Shiki is the special way of translation, not Hepburn Japanese, which is the normal way. Hepburn would be Yamashiro and Sojiro. Huh. God, okay, this is actually, in that case, interesting how Tymoon would actually, or Aniplex, or whoever is in charge with the actual translation would actually go for this. Like, instead of something, more recognizable to my Nihongo-phile eyes. I'm such a dum-dum when it comes to this sort of thing. I'm sorry. This wasn't the time to get distracted by more concerns. The fact remained that this conversation was all the peculiar she could handle, as she needed more information. She was already beginning to fantasize about saying no and curling up in her warm bed at home. Supposedly, Kunre Shiki was dictated by Tymoon itself for the localization, which is weird, but I suppose they are weird. We will never truly understand Nasu's ways. I guess we will never truly understand the man. I have a question. Yes? Yes, but he's a second-year student like you. He's well-behaved and a good listener. He's not the most energetic individual, but that just means he'll be easier to get along with, right? He's not in the same homeroom class as you, but I'm sure you'll get along just... I'll be the judge of that when I actually meet him. And none of that answered my question. Why me? Though her tone was still stern, it was clear that she was willing to cooperate. She had decided to put her feelings of dissatisfaction aside and focus on the task at hand. Okay, is there like an English, like... Is there like a English, like... Okay, Kunreshiki, is there like an English equivalent to that? Or am I like thinking of something that doesn't truly exist? Because I never heard of Kunreshiki or, before. She had decided to put her feelings of dissatisfaction aside and focus on the task at hand. Forcing herself to act apathetic in spite of her self-absorbed nature was something she was used to. Paradoxically, this force of will was also the reason teachers put so much faith in her. At times, that strength shattered expectation, and on those occasions, they were left with no choice but to treat it like a natural disaster and weather it until it passed. It was how Mr. Yamashiro had come to deal with her over the past year. I'll ask you one more time, Mr. Yamashiro. Why does it have to be me? Pressured by a question without a clear answer or no answer, he answered, Well, about that. You're probably thinking it's because you're the iron-fisted ruler of the student council and are willing to strike down both teacher and student for the good of the school, but you'd be wrong. You're wrong. I can't imagine any other reason you called me. Her eyes did nothing to hide her disbelief as she glared at him, strength far beyond that of an ordinary 17-year-old girl, coupled with the youthful beauty of one. Mr. Yamashiro let slip a genuine smile, admiring the miraculous balance of qualities. I mean, I'd handle this myself if it was just about pure obligation. But who gets this job has nothing to do with whether they're a teacher or on the student council. Bypass it all and start using special characters, Tosaka and Tono. Huh. I just felt that you were the only one who would entertain this kind of request without needing to weigh all sides. That's why I insisted it be you. So using special characters, is that like the equivalent of Kunreshiki, or is this regarding something else? In other words, he knew she wouldn't say no. Mr. Yamashiro. Oh dear, would you stop glaring at me like that already? At least put on a smile for your new schoolmate. I haven't read Mahoyo yet, but I've always been fascinated with Aoko's backstory. As someone who's more of a Fate guy, admittedly, more of a Fate guy than than any other like Tsukihime guy. I'm curious. You know, look, if you're agreeing to help, we should go see him. We've already kept him waiting long enough as it is. And because you braved the rain to get here, I'd be happy to give you a ride home. Mr. Yamashiro stood up gracefully. I'm good, thanks, he replied before turning and walking out of the faculty room. I got a question about this release. Is there new content by any chance? Nope. Okay, interesting. Then I assume is there at least art enhancements or something, or is it literally just the same story, without as intended to be? He had been waiting for about an hour. While he did, the rain shower lightened into a drizzle. His mind wandered as he listened to the sound of the raindrops. The room was filled with neatly arranged rectangular tables. He was the only one there. Quite some time had passed since he had been brought to this room and asked to wait. It's all the same stuff, but all the original stuff had been upscaled for full HD, which was harder to do than we think, most likely, and voice acting is new as well. Okay, the voice act... Okay, some upscaled art and voice acting, okay. Even the best behaved student might have grown dissatisfied or anxious with the situation by now, but the boy stuck to his spot like a scarecrow. He was chilled to the bone. It was the end of November, and the low temperature in the morning had marked the start of winter. The room was not much warmer. The heater hadn't been turned on. Either he'd missed the teacher telling him to turn it on, or he'd never seen one in his life. He breathed lightly on his freezing fingers as he aimlessly surveyed his surroundings. This dreary place was apparently a meeting room. The other students might have considered it a wonderful place to meet, but to him, it was drab and overly spacious. It was a lifeless place that reminded him of an arid cave. Stuck in this cold room with absolutely nothing to do, his mind turned to what they wanted to discuss. Ah, ah. Unable to come up with a solid answer, he turned his attention to the sound of the rain. The rain hardly resembled the rain in the mountains, though he could still recognize it, barely. Its smell and sound were harsher, but at the end of the day, rain was still rain. Trying to think of something like witty here. Like, mono means one, and rail means rail. I'm going to hit myself later. So even this world, alien as it was, could have something in common with the mountains. That trivial detail perked him up a little. He liked how the town looked soaked in rain. Naturally, he preferred sunny weather, but he liked rain in its own way. The fog from the rain had soaked up the scent of the soil. It reminded him of home. It was at times like these that he was able to numb the anxiety the city gave him. But then he let out a discouraged sigh. Ah, how pathetic. He'd already been here 2 weeks, and thoughts of his hometown still made him sad. Big sad, big sad. Perhaps feeling that he was being unfair to his new life, he composed himself and continued to wait patiently. As if having a passion for distractions, his attention returned to the sound of the rain once more. Waiting like this didn't seem to be particularly hard for him. He quietly endured the numbing cold and the hour alone with calm, deep breaths. As the saying goes, good things come to those who wait. A strong point of his or not, he was astonishingly patient. It was certainly helping him out in this moment. Boy is suffering because he's a hick. Ha! Got him. She, on the other hand, was livid. The profile of the transfer student had been explained to her on her way to the meeting room. She was told that he had lived his whole life up in the mountains without any electricity. How is he still alive? Like, I would kill myself without electricity. Not really. That was a joke. A bad one. Um I shouldn't have done that. That was really stupid of me. Anyway, that was more than half of the civilized society. That meant more than half of civilized society would have been an utter mystery to him. What a miserable level of isolation. How is this even possible in post-war Japan? He's like Robinson Crusoe. She had every right to be angry. His village had apparently remained isolated in the mountains for many years. Contact with the villages in the foothills of the mountains only occurred once a month or so, which was unfathomable in modern Japan. Although expressways and Japan Rail, the old national railways, now spanned the country like arteries, it wasn't entirely impossible for mountain villages like his to exist. But she couldn't imagine how someone born to such circumstances would think or live. Then you say no electricity, you mean in general, right? Like, he must have had access to a public phone. Apparently not. He mentioned how shocked he was by the phones when he started living here. He was also shocked that Fortnite existed. I kid you not. He said, "Wow, telephones are so useful. Couldn't really deny that, could I?" She shot a long, sidelong glare his way as he left. It seemed that the naivety of the country boy had cheered up Mr. Yamashiro a bit. They probably didn't have police officers either. My family home is up in the mountains, so it's not inconceivable they wouldn't have electricity. But he doesn't even know what school is? What? Doesn't know what school is? Nope, never heard of them. But this is apparently his first time visiting one. Maybe that's why he's nervous. He wasn't very talkative. He's almost what you would call feral, like a boy raised by wolves. I suppose that makes us Lewis and Clark. Hey, you're scaring me, Aozaki. I was joking. Go easy, okay? And don't worry, I got the feeling from talking to him that he's a nice kid. He was almost like, I don't know, a cute little animal that doesn't speak human. Your jokes and metaphors aren't helping. As she gave her blunt reply, she tried to simulate in her mind what life would be like without electricity. But the thought of it took her sour mood from bad to worse. After all, it was a world she had never known. She could understand why the teachers had given up. She too wanted to give up and return to her warm bed, but her good-for-nothing pride was holding her hostage. Not only did the teachers believe she was up to the task, but she also believed she could do it. It wasn't that easy to go back on her word, no matter how bad things looked after the fact. She walked along the hallway, and the rain pattering in the background. Holy shit, it's a bot! Bad bot. Bad. You're a bad bot. Go away, Mr. Bot. Yeah, got that bot. Got that bot good. For now. Is there a way to, like... Let's see here. Yeah, show that bot who's, what, 4? Something. So witty. Stray, you made me forgot that Nasu didn't put muscles on Saber, and now I am a sage. Sage. I mean, yeah, Saber is supposed to have muscles, right? Keep forgetting about that too. I don't know, she's cuter without them. Anyway, she walked along the hallway, the rain pattering in the background. The meeting room was already in sight. With a furrowed brow, She fixed her long hair in anticipation of meeting the unknown stranger within. Her elegant strides were like those of a confident general going into battle.
いや、青崎くん
Um, I don't know. There's like there's plenty of like Saber fan art with her with muscles. I've looked at them and well, anyway, Miss Ozaki,
君を信頼
I
して
believe in you and all, but I'll say it again. Be nice, okay? Can you at least try to smile?
優しくね
Try to smile,
笑顔
okay?
が作れないかな
Like me. Anyway,
作り笑いは
I'm
苦
bad
手
at faking smiles, but I'll do my best.
ああ
Really?
そうなんだ
That's a
それ
relief.
はよかったいやー本当
I
に
really mean it. It's good to know you're not good at everything.
だったんだね
Mr. Yamashiro's shoulders slumped the second they reached the meeting room. As she put his hand on the door, his eyes seemed to say to her, "Be nice, please." This only made her more irritated.
分かってるわよ愛想が悪いってのは
I already know I'm not the friendliest looking person in the world, but I can't just make myself smile at the drop of a hat.
大体そういうイン
You should have asked Tobimaru if that's what you were after. She sighed about her social shortcomings, but it occurred to her that being called into school on a day off while sleep deprived wasn't anything to smile about anyway. She also thought the person responsible for this mess would be better off attending elementary school. It might not be his fault, but neither was it her duty or obligation to do the teacher's work for them. It was at the very least, they could have used their brains and organized all of this on a normal school day, another complaint she wanted to voice later.
いやというか敵
I hate him already. He's my sworn enemy, and I haven't even met him. Sorry, but I couldn't care less about his extenuating circumstances.
間が悪いのはお互い様
You think this isn't awkward for me, too?
なんでよりにもよ
Honestly, why did this have to happen when I'm so busy? Also, did tampons exist in the 80s? Because I need one. Her pounding headache from a lack of sleep had boosted her aggression by 10%. No matter how harmless the guy on the other side of the door may be, anyone who disturbed her sleep was the enemy. And just as she was reaching peak annoyance, Mr. Yamashiro opened the door to the meeting room. The door slowly slid into view. She didn't care about formalities. Just looked straight ahead and stormed into the room. Asuka inspired. Of course. And found herself face to face with the most unusual opponent. Before we go on, let's see from another perspective. Turning back the clock just a little. You don't have to do anything. For some, those words were a priceless luxury. For others, they were unbearable torture. For the proactive girl, it was definitely the former, though she'd be too suspicious of the motives of anyone giving her such a gift to accept it. For the passive boy, it was definitely the latter, a bitter thorn that made him homesick, though at this very moment his mind was still distracted with the wait for his face to reveal any discontent. He maintained perfect posture as he stared at the gray sky. He had already waited a whole hour, but figured they must have had their reasons for making him wait. And as long as he held the sound of the rain to soothe him, he could keep on waiting. Gotta reread it sometimes.
そろそろ9時を過ぎるのか
It must be 9 o'clock already. Yeah, that seems about right. He had been vaguely keeping track of the time as he listened to the rain. Due to the holiday, the school building was completely silent, except for the patter of the rain on the window. The mood felt as damp as the air. It was then he heard the heavy clatter of footsteps approaching.
よかった。
Finally,
されているかと
I thought they'd forgotten about me. Could hear two sets of footsteps, one heavier set belonging to an adult. He breathed a sigh of relief as the door slid open.
すまないね。
So sorry to keep you waiting. The first person he saw was a man wearing glasses. The first person he saw was a man wearing glasses and an awkward smile. That's Mr. Yamashiro, the one who brought me here.
って、あれ
Hey, where's Mr. Satanaka?
いないんですか
I told him to keep you company. He shouldn't have left you here.
話し相手になってあげてと言って
Mr. Yamashiro scratched his head, looking increasingly apologetic. And then, from behind him, oh shit. With a tight-lipped expression that made it clear she didn't want to be there, a dark-haired girl with a determined look in her eyes appeared. Hormones engaged! Sojiro gulped. The sound of the rain on the window faded into nothingness as his dick expanded. That's when he knew. This was how it felt when time stood still. Teenage boy senses engaged. Pretty woman. She blinked quickly a few times as if taken aback. Why was anyone's guess? The boy was everything she expected. A native. Sorry if my. Hold on a bit. Sorry. The boy was everything she expected a native country boy to look like. However, she felt something she couldn't understand. Yeah, my throat is just kind of irritated at the moment from reading and talking. Hold on, let me get a drink of water. All right, let's continue. His eyes widened slightly as if taken aback. The reason was obvious. He was a teenage boy with raging hormones. Putting his feeling into words was a different matter altogether, so we will never know exactly what he experienced in that moment. Like Tarzan meeting Jane. He knew. Man. I'd like to hit that. Anyway, that's what it hit him. He sensed he'd been touched by the hands of destiny. Woo!
紹介するよ。
Allow me to introduce the two of you. This is the transfer student I mentioned, Sojiro Shizuki.
で、こっちの
And this is the girl that will be showing you around.
うちの生徒会
She's our student council president and came in on her day off just to welcome you. Her name is Aoko Aozaki. Don't do any funny business either. His voice and the sound of the rain seemed distant. This is how they first met. Such was their start, for better or worse, like an ephemeral beauty of fireworks. In the pants. It was commonly believed among the students that Aoko was always in a foul mood. But this gossip was 90% prejudice, as Aoko simply didn't have time to be irritated 24/7. The reality was she simply didn't want to explain herself all the time, and therefore seemed angry about something, obvious or not. This idle gossip did, however, lead her to earning the title of one of the school's 7 deadly sins. 7 deadly threats. Not sins. The remaining 10% of the gossip was right on the mark, though. Aoko herself often had the feeling that her tendency to feel animosity toward harmless things was akin to what a chronic headache sufferer might experience. Today fell under that 10%. For today, her anger was pure, and her childish and selfish display was befitting of her actual age. The meeting room was dimly lit, awash with the colors of the rain. To reduce electricity costs, school regulations forbid the use of lights during the day. This was the setting the 3 of them had found themselves in. Her first impression was that his calm demeanor reminded her of a field of wildflowers. In spite of his perfect posture, he seemed subdued and frail. And though describing him as meek would be going too far, at the very least he was passive. Even through his uniform, she could see that he was thinner than average. His dark hair was unkempt, and he came across as a wholly forgettable boy. She had to look at him in a more positive light. If she had to look at him in a more positive light, she would describe him more of a young man than a boy. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart. It was his calm demeanor that made him seem more mature. Was that the cause of Aoko's reasonless reaction? He seemed almost too at home in the meeting room, and she was left with the impression that it was her and the teacher, not this outsider, who were the guests here. Wonder where those bandages came from. She felt an unidentifiable aggravation building within her, almost as if her right to be here was in question. Aoko felt herself raising her natural defenses. From his dick. What's with me? Am I really this angry for no reason? Am I a Twitter user? She hated not understanding things, her own emotions in particular. It pained her less than you would imagine for a perfectionist like her, but still nagged her like a thorn in her side. Ha ha ha! Aozaki, why don't you introduce yourself? Mr. Yamashiro's attempt to relieve the tension was equally irritating. Introduce myself, huh? After casting a nasty glance at the teacher's direction, Aoko turned to face the boy. From an outsider's perspective, it might have looked like a stare down. And in that instant, the culmination of her emotional state hurtled toward the innocent boy and skewered him. Again, sorry for the wait, Shizuki. Hearing his name, Sojiro came to his senses. His stunned gaze shook loose. He took a deep breath to clear his mind. Man, I like to tap that. Chalking it up to nerves, Mr. Yamashiro broke out a smile and turned to the girl standing beside him. I'll do the introductions then. This is the transfer student, Sojiro Shizuki. And this is our student council president who came in on her day off just to show you around. Her name is Aoko Aozaki. Having been introduced to Mr. Yamashiro, the girl took a step forward. Her eyes were merciless. Her stare, an unspoken threat to violently trample her opponent. Sojiro, on the other hand, managed to keep his own composure despite the shock of how confrontational she had appeared. He had never been greeted quite like this before, but supposed mistakenly that this was how people treated each other in the city. The exchange must have looked quite dramatic to an onlooker. The girl, ready to brawl, fucking fight already, okay? Kick him in the nuts. An earnest country boy, desperate to understand. It was a murderous limbo, especially for anyone in the room with them. Put on the boxing gloves. Anyway, like Mr. Yamashiro, for example, while he had thought he had made the right decision in choosing an honor student to help him out, she was in inexplicably bad mood, and the tension in the air was undeniable. Get the hell out of here, country bumpkin. Anyway, it was at this moment that he realized he fucked up. Yeah, fuck it. No, it was at this moment that he realized his failure. His realization had come far too late. One false move, and this girl, for whom no problem was too large, would becoming a storm that would rock the very foundations of the school. That was an awkward sentence. For me, anyway. Just as the almighty Joker card could bring either fortune or disaster, the sole teacher who had been present at the time would come to bear the blame for the scandal that ensued. Wow, you two really seem to have hit it off. Bang in front of me already. That's an order. I'm your teacher, okay? As your teacher, I want you to bang in front of me so I can, like, film it. Because, you know? That's legal in Japan, right? I suppose I can leave you to it. Leave you to it, then. Mr. Yamashiro laughed nervously as he crept toward the door. Don't do any funny business. I'll be in the faculty room. Stop by when you're finished. You'll be alright, won't you, Azaki? You're the transfer student. You're a student council president. Don't let me down. Please don't let me down. I'll get sad if you do. Okay. Mr. Yamashiro left the two in a locked-eyed state, one in which one set of eyes was doing all the glaring. All that remained in the room was a naive boy and a cross-armed guarded girl. The two lingered in silence. They resembled shogi players agonizing over their first moves, though ultimately it was only Aoko who had considered the scene that carefully. She decided to put her irritation aside for the time being. With no real reason to feel revulsion for him in the first place, she sighed deeply and faced Sojiro. Whatever. It's not like this is the first time that Mr. Yamashiro landed me in it. And what? So what's your name again? Her tone was nothing if not reproachful, though he had done nothing to offend her. But the boy failed to pick up on it. Incapable of such venom himself. I'm Sojiro Shizuki, he replied. And you're Miss Aoki, right? For whatever reason, he came across as happy in his response. Drop the miss. That's not my style. Is Shizuki fine? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do I mean? Huh?
何よ。
Hello? Did I say something weird?
いや、すごく。
Yeah, very... Oh my gosh, she's acting like a Californian. A Southern Californian. Anyway, the boy replied immediately as if it was a natural response, but quickly second-guessed himself.
いや、いいんだ。
Never mind. That must be normal here.
しずきくんで頼む。
You can call me Shizuki.
君は青崎で。
You mind if I call you Aozaki?
え、よろしく。
Suit yourself. She followed her blunt reply with a swift turn away from him. While she was hardly thrilled at the prospect of the task at hand, it had been entrusted to her, and it was her personal policy to see it through to the end.
悪いけど。
Sorry, but I'm not in the mood for pleasantries.
時間も惜しいし
Time is short, so let's get this over with.
それは助かる。
Sure, I know your time is valuable. Aoko's blunt rancor was lost on him once again. This boy autistic. I mean, it can't be that he's a bumpkin, man. This boy, this dude has the scrambly brain, okay? Like me. His brain's scrambled. Very scrambled brain. Scrambled brain. Like scrambled eggs. Anyway, humans tend to be overly conscious about being ignored, whatever form that takes. But despite being peeved at landing none of her attacks, Aoko did her best to act professional and directed her guest into the hallway. Are you sure she's being professional? I don't know, she's acting like a Southern Californian or someone from San Francisco. Or someone from the Amaron system. Anyone you talk to in the Amaron system is kind of like this. Very rude. The things I have to put up with around here. There was no sunlight in the hall. There was no sunlight in the hallway, nor any sign of life. This was more like a prison than the cave that was the meeting room. As it dawned on Aoko that the hallway matched her mood, she sighed once again.
まず聞いておくけど。
First things first, did you understand everything Mr. Yamashiro explained to you?
ああ、
Yes,
学校の仕組み
I get how the school works,
この建物全部
but it's still a bit hard to imagine that everyone here is around the same age.
そう。
I see. Great. Aoko rubbed her forehead. This Sojiro kid had no idea what he was in for. Apparently, all he'd heard about school was that it was a place where a lot of people met to study. High school teachers imparted to students their knowledge in various fields of study, while fostering discipline and creativity. But never did Aoko imagine that she would have to explain the concept of school itself to somebody. Yes, fundamentals were important, but this is absurd. She had serious doubts whether he could even handle classes, but Mr. Yamashiro insisted that things would work out somehow. Sojiro had managed to pass the transfer exam after all. Barely. Baka. What a baka. Idiot baka. Baka baka.
私に
Not my problem, baka. Aoko grumbled mentally as she walked down the hallway. She consoled herself with the fact that the day would be the only day she'd spend with this boy out of time, or at least she tried to keep it that way.
青崎、
Ozaki? He asked calmly, trying to get her attention.
何？
What?
一
Baka?
つ聞いていいかな。
Can I ask you something?
だから何？
Yes, what is it, Baka?
俺の気のせいだと思う。
I could be wrong about this, but you seem upset about something.
何かを睨んでいるように見える。やはり、
You're not a morning person, are you? His gaze revealed earnest concern, as if asking her if she'd remembered to eat breakfast. Oh shit! Our boy landed on a trip mine. It was like another hammer to her head. It was true that Aoko had been glaring at Sojiro the entire time. Glaring red, hot daggers, in fact. Not just at him, but the universe. Even on her best days, her roommate used to remark, "Most people can't handle your scowl, Aoko. It wouldn't hurt for you to be a little more tolerant." She'd been warned that her emotions were so naked on her face that people treated her like a powder keg. How naive could the boy be that he could not pick up on this? He's making fun of me, is he? No, he couldn't be. Huh? Even she found her own attempt to reassure herself unconvincing. It began to down on Aoko far too late. Like that compared to her, this laid-back transfer student might as well have been from another planet. Look, let me spell it out for you, Baka, because you're just not getting it, Baka. It's not your imagination, Baka. I'm angry, and anyone could see that in my eyes, Baka. It's easier than trying to make conversation, Baka. In response to her words, the Martian clapped his hands together. That makes sense. I don't know why you want me to do it. I don't know why you want to do it that way, but I guess it's a faster way to express yourself. Soichiro accepted her reasoning without argument. Though he still had no idea what kinds of emotions she was trying to express. It was as if he could hear the words but didn't grasp the meaning. Ideas that should have connected were instead separated into blocks. So it's true. He really is peculiar. Mr. Yamashiro's words made sense to her now. What was odd about this boy went way beyond naivety. A stranger in a strange land he may be, it was only civilized to forgive him. Some jet lag it was only okay. Let me read that again because I'm being a dum-dum. A stranger in a strange land he may be, but it was only civilized to forgive him some jet lag induced confusion. Let's visit your classroom. She had regained her composure. Sojiro raised his hand and stopped in his tracks. Just one more thing. Ako waited for Sojiro to continue. The boy was patient to a fault. She rubbed her forehead on her hand again, nursing a vague feeling of uneasiness. I want to ask why you are so angry. Is it your line of business, or does it run in your family? This boy gonna fucking die, bro. This boy's gonna die. Gonna die. And she's gonna be the murderer, man. A long silence. Though she knew it wouldn't change the situation, she remembered her regret in answering the phone that morning. Why did telephones have to exist? I bet she's wondering. He meant no harm. She repeated this thought like a mantra in an attempt to keep her impulses in check. Oh, God. It's not you, but it's what you're worried about. If it's not you, if that's what you're worried about. Rather. I just rather be somewhere else right about now. Like in bed. With my toys. My personal toys. in bed. Not that there's anything wrong with that. With that vague answer, she started to walk again. And turned her gaze away from this rude stranger named Sojiro Shizuki. While what constitutes normal is certainly up for debate, most would undoubtedly refer to him as so. He was a simple and nice boy with nondescript features. If he were an ice cream flavor, he would be vanilla. Oh, damn, look at those thighs, boy. Those thighs. I want those thighs. Hold on. I want those thighs. Did I lead into those thighs? I want those thighs. Nice thighs. And Sojiro found Aoko to be very businesslike and full of life. There was a certain purpose to her movements as they began and ended in an orderly fashion. The way her finger raised when she pointed at things. And the way she made her way across the hallways and classrooms. The way she would occasionally glance at him to make sure he was keeping pace. Each and every movement was so impressive that he couldn't take his eyes off her. It was as if he's a teenage boy or something. Aoko showed him to his homeroom, Class C, of the 11th grade. The room certainly displayed more of a human touch than the previous meeting room, but Sojiro was none the wiser as to its function. Aoko gave a brief explanation before they visited individual subject classrooms, as well as the gym, cafeteria, locker room, and school infirmary. Okay. Just wanted to check on the preview. Okay, there we go. Sojiro asked so many questions that much time passed before they reached the AV room on the second floor. Oh dear. Sojiro stopped, looking genuinely concerned. And oh god, he has a stomach ache. Poor boy. It's 20 to 1 already. Huh? You're kidding, right? This school isn't that big. We'll be done soon. The tour had begun around 10, which meant that 3 hours had passed. The tour of the school shouldn't take anywhere near this long. Maybe if you didn't ask so many questions, we'd be done by now, Baka. It's a miracle it's still light out, Baka. Aoko glared at Sojiro. She was being sarcastic, of course, knowing full well he would never pick up on it. Is he? To her surprise, he looked down apologetically, unable to hide his dejection. Oops, I think I broke him. You gotta fix him. He could be fixed. I could fix him! The guy before her now was nothing like earlier. In contrast to seeing his once impenetrable veneer when they first met, she found herself feeling sympathetic. Momentarily, at least, until her irritation returned in full force. What's the hurry, Baka? You'll tell me your brain's not big enough to remember all this stuff, Baka. Complete opposite. It's probably really good at remembering. You know, because spaghetti. Well, there's that, but it's also about it almost being 1 o'clock. Sojiro's gaze wandered as if worried about something. If he was worried about the weather, he would have a hard time seeing it as there were no windows in this hallway. Yeah, like, he passed the exam, like, you know, despite being from the country and knowing nothing. I must make him a super genius by naturally, you know? Which means he is autistic, okay? Like that's a trait. Like he remembers stuff very peculiar stuff, like really accurately and all that. Like almost as if like superhuman, because that's how autism works, right? You know? That's how it works. I should know. I'm an expert on it, on autism. You know? You could quote me on that if you want to. Anyway. Don't tell me you've got somewhere better to be. That's perfect. I take it out of my day for you. I take time out of my day for you, and you don't have the decency to even hang around. You're a real piece of work, you know that, Baka? Thanks, I guess. That's nice of you to say. Not a compliment, Baka! She yelled at him, unable to hold back her fury. Well? Well, what? What's happening in 20 minutes? Sojiro's face lit up as he finally understood what she was asking him. It's a secret, he said with a perfectly straight face. Look at that face of hers. That's great. I love it. She wants to kill him. I want to kill him too. But not really, because I don't know him. But she wants to kill him. We all want to kill him. Because he's a baka. Baka. Baka! Every time I think I got this guy figured out, he finds a way to trip me up. Her frustration was natural. Still, she did everything she could to stifle her feelings and fake a smile. You want to repeat that, Shizuki? She took a step forward. Looking at the time, she took a step forward. Like I said, it's a secret. Feeling the mood change drastically, Sojiro took a step back. And another. And another. No matter how many steps he took back, she kept edging toward him. She was smiling, but he thought he could see the blood boiling beneath her skin. Last question. Do you want to die? You want to die, Baka? Wow, I'm not that far off. Do you enjoy mocking me? He had no intention of mocking her, though at this point he doubted presenting any evidence to prove this would do much to erase that forced smile on her face. Let me explain. His arms raised in surrender. She halted her advance and freed her face from that unseemly smile. The truth is that my part-time job shift starts at 1. But students aren't allowed to have jobs, right? Yeah? Wait, were you being tight-lipped because you thought you'd get in trouble? All you have to do is get permission, dweeb. Wow, she called him a dweeb. That's painful. I know, I did. I got permission when they accepted me to the school. Look at those thighs. Looks good. I want those thighs. Anyway, really? Ako's face lit up as she realized he might not be the piece of work she thought him to be. Yet. But I only got permission for one of my jobs. Oh, the dude's a freelancer like me, guys. Holy shit. You have more than one job? Okay, I could relate to this dude already. God. Okay, not so much for the whole permission part, but the whole having multiple jobs part. Oh God, having so many gigs to like worry about. I can relate.
これでも2件減らしたんだ。
Well, I quit 2 of them.
生活費だけで
Living expenses are bad enough, but now I have to earn money for school as well. Don't you think it's unreasonable for them to only let me work 1 job? Like a plebe?
無理なのはあなたの方だと思う。
Like a pleb? No, I think you're the only one who's being unreasonable. Though still irritated, her opinion of him changed a little. She was impressed that he was able to take care of his tuition and living expenses all on his own. She could also empathize with him having no time to oneself. Her anger began to subside. The words part-time job were about the last thing she ever expected to hear out of his country boy's mouth. Out of the country boy's mouth, rather.
そういうことなら仕方ないわね。
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. Baka.
いいわ。
It's fine. You can go. I get it. Baka.
青崎は
Will you be okay? She had no idea what his question meant, but she at least understood he was trying to be considerate. Which also took her by surprise. She figured he'd be just as dense about people's feelings as he was about everything else.
別に。私
I'll be
は
fine.
帰るから。
I'll just head home. Baka. What a baka. Look at that face. She's going baka, baka, baka brain. What a baka brain. First, though, she thought it'd be best that they both stop by the faculty room. Mr. Yamashiro had mentioned that the transfer procedures had already been completed, so all that remained was for him to sign off on her duties.
先生。
I finished showing him around.
それは
Great job! That goes for you too, Shizuki. What do you think about our school?
を回った感想はどうかな。ありがとうございます。
Thank you for the tour. It's like a real school. It is a school, dumb baka.
そうかそうか。
Haha, that's great to hear. Actually, how would you know what a school is in the first place? That's weird. Not like he grew up with the electricity. It's not like he like Googled what schools are like. How would he know? He's just guessing. He's just tripping us up. Great to hear. Okay then, best of luck starting tomorrow. She had no interest whatsoever in this pointless wrap-up meeting.
山城先生のこと
You'll have to forgive Yamashiro.
教え子に
He likes the faculty room so much he chooses to kick back there while getting the students to do his dirty work for him.
待ってるでしょ。
I bet he spends hours in there.
いえ。
Actually, that's pretty smart of him.
そうか。
Okay, Aozaki, if you're fine with it, so am I. I mean, look at this dude's, like, posture and... Look at this dude. This dude doesn't know shit. Doesn't know shit. Huh? There it was again. Whatever Sojiro was getting at, Ako had no idea.
それじゃあ行くよ。
I'm going to get going. Thanks again for today.
今日だけよ。今日だけ。
Yes, today only. Today only. She shooed him away with her hand. His face bent into a broad smile as he found the gesture endearing. It was a softer expression that she had grown accustomed to seeing out of him. It was like a kind of smile that would make anyone smile back. Well, most people at least. Ako Ozaki didn't betray the slightest hint of a smile. You know, like seeing all of this, like, you know, how, like, stylistically, this really does make me want a Fate Stay Night remake. You know? I really like the composition so far. See you later. Huh? And with that friendly farewell, Sojiro walked toward the end of the hallway. And so she thought before he turned into the next class over. Did he just... Soichiro headed straight for one of the classroom's window. What? Whereupon he opened it with ease? The chilly November air filled the room as soft sounds of the rain doubled in volume. What the fuck is he gonna... Holy shit. In that instant, she realized his intention with opening the window. She really wished she hadn't. Holy shit. Stop, you baka. She really had one leg out of the window. He really had one leg out of the window when she dashed to stop him. What do you think you're doing, baka? What am I doing? I'm leaving for my job, that's what. You do know what this window is an exit, do you? I mean, do you even know what floor you're on? She saw the light of understanding dawn in his eyes. Oh my god, I almost died. Who would put an exit here? This is dangerous. It's the lack of something between your ears that's dangerous. Hey, that's offensive. Her insult went right over his head. People here don't normally enter and exit through windows, okay? You should probably remember this information for future reference. And what visual novel is this? This is great. Oh, I know. I just wanted to save some time. But thanks. I'll be more careful from now on. Just look at his expression, man. He doesn't know shit. Bye, Sean. Thanks for stopping by. He pulled his leg back inside and closed the window. His school uniform was soaking wet from rain. Hey, be my guest. Go outside any way you like. Just don't do it in front of me from now on. Wow. She really is a Californian. Anyway, you start school tomorrow, right? Yeah, I'm a little nervous though, which is why I came in early for the tour. He bid her farewell before running away down the hallway. She hoped he would walk down the stairs and leave through the school entrance like a normal person. I wonder if he's really going to be okay here. The image of him disappearing into the distance popped into her head, in spite of her ire. She had no intention of spending any more time with him, and yet she felt strangely anxious. She couldn't tell if the feeling was fueled by concern or irritation. Why she even gotten angry with this insignificant transfer student in the first... Okay, let me reread that again, because I'm having a lame brain. Why was she even why had she even gotten angry with this insignificant transfer student in the first place? My freaking lips are numb. Point. A strange day with a strange transfer student resulted in strange emotions. Her head tilted as she reflected on what would have been a more enjoyable day than the irritating experience she just had. Whatever. It's not like as if I'll be seeing him again. So you jinxed it. Yeah, okay. The sound of the rain echoed quietly all around her. The gray sky seemed frozen in time. It was impossible to discern whether it was morning or evening. Mr. Yamashiro and Aoko were likely the only ones left at the school. The unlit classroom looked overly gloomy and ominous as Aoko stood in it alone. She pulled up her left sleeve. Her Her dainty, unremarkable watch showed that it was almost 1 o'clock.
時間
It was right about the time for a baka. She looked out the window at the grounds below. She saw a boy in uniform running through the rain without an umbrella, a sight she must have seen before, but for whatever reason affected her far more than she wished. Ako did not stop by the faculty room before heading home. While Mr. Yamashiro's offer to drive her home was tempting, she decided it would ultimately be far more satisfying to ruin his day just as he had hers. She walked as quietly as she could toward the entrance and opened her bright red umbrella. Bright red umbrella? What, does the umbrella like infuse with her hair in the future? Is that a spoiler? Anyway, she had predicted that morning the rain was waning in the afternoon. At this rate, it would probably cease completely in an hour or so. The distant sunshine would likely have reached her by the time she arrived home.
まそれも
Well, I guess it could be worse. She shrugged her shoulders in resignation. She neither liked nor disliked rain, but she found herself enjoying her walk home with a red umbrella in hand. The teachers at Misaki High School weren't fond of bright colors, so Ako's red umbrella was an unusual sight. A ghost story about her umbrella was once pure white, had been making the rounds, but it featured Ako instead of a ghost. It was with that umbrella that she made her way toward Misaki Station. The private Misaki High School got its name from the town of the same name. The area was once a sprawl of farmland and woodlands, but the rapid growth over the past 10 years had led to unprecedented modernization. There were some who fought to preserve Misaki's natural treasures. I agree in principle to preserving the land, but not at the expense of our prosperity. With those words, the mayor snuffed out the voices of the minority and ushered in a long-term plan for new urban development. More than enough funds for the urban development were collected, and the unassuming town of Misaki became the largest municipality of Misaki City in merely 10 years. That's impressive, actually. Even though it lacked the modernity of neighboring Yashirogi or the elegance of Misaki Hills.
それも当然よね
What did people expect? To keep the town hidden on top of the mountain forever? It's not like they were gonna
切り崩すって
flatten the mountain or something. Man, she really is a mood. Really is a mood. Urbanization had been contained to the lowlands around the station, with most of the hills and mountains still standing as they did 10 years prior. The exhaustion of funds succeeded in protecting the old Misaki where the citizens could not. It became a truly odd suburban town, welcoming an increasingly urban population with its vestiges of old country charm. Misaki High School was a private school established long before the town's current state. The original campus, built 50 years ago, was located high up in the mountains, making its current location its second incarnation. The path to the old grounds was remote, steep, and also well trodden by animals. For these reasons, among others, Misaki High School had been shuttered until almost 20 years ago, when it received a donation from a department store chain that allowed for the construction of a new campus in the city. Mahoyo's charm point is that it's a slice of life elements. So it. Okay, I'm trying to read your comment here. So when it turns up, it's way more impactful. This is probably more true for Mahoyo than any other Nasu work. Huh. and thus Misaki High School will reopen its doors, the old woodland campus forgotten. In fact, most of the students attending Misaki High School were not from Misaki at all. The hardy rustic people of this country town preferred prefectural schools to private ones. Truth be told, Aoko herself was one of them. All she had wanted after junior high was to move to Tokyo, where she had hoped to spend her days enjoying live music on her way to entering a public university. But her hopes were dashed with her sister's departure, so here she was, walking alone in town, with only a red umbrella to keep her company on what should have been a day off. Looking back on it now, it's like my whole life has been one disaster after another. Her frustration evaporated into the cold December air. Oh well, at least it's not boring. And these production values are really good. With those words, her mood brightened a bit as she left the school in her wake. The busier part of town met her at the bottom of the gently sloping road. Okay. Misaki train station was brand new. Once looking no prettier than an abandoned factory, it had been renovated into a multi-purpose structure with huge department stores on its east and west sides. When the department stores first opened, Aoko and her friends had been impressed with the modern feel, but in time, the stores too became dated. She had no shopping to do today, but she passed them by. What she really wanted to do was rest at a cafe, but she fought the urge, knowing her roommate would never let her hear the end of it if she frittered away her money. Slow motion! She looked back and blinked. For just a moment, she could have sworn she'd seen someone suspicious in a red dress out of the corner of her eye. In slow motion. It must have been her imagination. The sixth sense chill she was experiencing down her spine was a familiar one at this point. She continued her walk home, brushing off the event as if it had never happened. In time, the chill faded, and all that was left was the sounds of the town. She sighed heavily. Had she imagined it? Even if it had been in her head, it was far from comfortable, with the feeling that still lingered. Even mosquitoes have the grace to buzz off eventually. She grumbled under her breath. Whether good or bad, so the saying goes, this too shall pass. Let me reread that again. Whether good or bad, this too shall pass, so the saying goes. Yeah, I've gotten enough on my plate as it is. Unfortunately, summer and bugs go hand in hand. She could see how bugs could be drawn to all the sweet fruit. Ooh. Transition. Rank with grease and heat, the kitchen was closed for the time being. The lunch rush had come and gone. But one last battle remained. Dinner time. Only after the evening chaos could the kitchen crew remove their white armor and call it a day. Cook stay night. In the midst of the war zone was a lone newcomer. Do I have to wear this? His voice was uneasy, betraying how new he was. I know how you feel, man. I feel the same. Unfortunately, it's the boss's orders, so you'll have to suck it up, okay? The future of this shopping arcade is at stake, apparently. I hate to ask, but the rain has stopped, so would you mind going out for me? Get back in one piece, and I'll buy you dinner. His bright orange coworker collapsed his hands together as if to beg for forgiveness as he saddled him with his unreasonable task. Music. 10 years ago, Misaki City was a town of farm and woodland. But everything had changed in front of the station. Let me reread that. Bleh. Everything had changed. The front of the station was now lined with tall, multi-story buildings, and the residential areas were similarly full of apartment complexes. The once rustic scenery around the station had long become a thing of the past. Shiro Inuzuka was the only place in the city that still contained vestiges of the old town, a pocket of the past inside an urban jungle. The road extended up a conspicuously high hill to an old residential district far from the hustle and bustle of the train station. Long ago, it had been considered unwise to build on high ground, so nobody lived above a certain elevation. Shiro Inuzuka, sitting as it did atop a hill in the middle of town, was no exception to that convention and had no residences to speak of. Oh my god, I am fading. I'm fading. The asphalt continued for some time, eventually giving way to a mountain road that was swallowed into the cover of trees. Is there a save function? Oh shit, I forgot to save. Let's save now. Yes, let's save. A lone vending machine stood to mark the boundary between town and beyond. Even the children knew that there was nothing beyond the new playground development, so that enthralled them. Well, that was not entirely new. There was nothing besides the old Hodden house. Oh, not the old Hodden, besides the Hodden house. Aoko Aozaki traversed the long slope. Below her, she could see the whole of Misaki. The symmetrical town looked like a miniature set from this height. Christ. Also, I'm hungry. It would look like a painting if there had been a sea next to it, but unfortunately, Misaki City was very much landlocked. While it was overcast at the moment, the scene was quite breathtaking on clear evenings. The view was one thing that made the arduous climb worthwhile, and today she had been denied even that. I'd cycle home if it wasn't for this rain. Even a bus route would be a fine thing. Aoko had been using this road to get to school for almost 2 years now, but the journey had never gotten easier. Oh, it's locked? I guess Alice isn't back yet. With a weary shrug, she put her hand on the rusty iron fence. Quietly, the heavy gate swung open as if to welcome her home. Welcome home, Aoko! There sits atop that hill a haunted house. That is how the story much shared around town used to begin. But fresh rumors about the house had sprung to life almost as fast as the town's modernization. Despite being dilapidated and abandoned for many years, lights can be seen inside the house at night. An angry murderer of crows often gathers atop the hill before mysteriously vanishing. Children get lost in the fog, never to be seen again. Late at night, a shrieking sound could be heard all the way to town. This particular piece of slander was the one. Let me reread that again because I'm being a dummy. Late at night, a shrieking sound could be heard all the way to town. This particular piece of slander was the one Alco wished to discredit the most. The final rumor was of an eye-catching luxury car that sometimes made its way up and down the hill. The rumor spread and grew by the day. And while they grew, the house that everyone thought had rotted away was restored over the recent years. Deep in the wood on top of a hill no one dared to approach. Like a ruin shrouded from view even in the brightest of days, stood a relic out of time, a building from a fairy tale. The house. Nice house, gotta admit that. Was the Kuwanji Mansion. Or Kuwanji Mansion. Can you tell I'm not Japanese? Not really, despite my last name. Everyone in town knew about the witch's house on the hill. The unabashedly haunted house where Aoko Ozaki resided for reasons unknown. Needless to say, it was not really haunted. And Kuwanji family home was not a grand Western-style mansion with a long and storied history, stretching all the way back to England. It was too small for it to be a dormitory, yet too big to be called a house. The main building contained as many as 3 normal houses worth of rooms and was surrounded by a large, all-encompassing courtyard. The perimeter of the grounds was surrounded by a high iron fence covered in thorny vines. There was also an annex to the main building. Given such extravagance, it was no wonder that it inspired rumors. To the town residents, the mere existence of such a lavish and out-of-place mansion on top of the hill was a cause for suspicion. Rumors, lies, and slander were the prices to be paid for fame. With only 2 lodgers, it was hard to disagree with the perception that vampires must be living here. Foreshadowing! For the future, I guess. Well, I know I'm not one, but Alice. She put her hand on the front door. It was the grand double door that would have paired well with a brass lock, and yet it was secured with little more than a simple keyhole. Pushing it open with one hand, she entered the supposedly haunted house. And by the way, if vampires were not enough to scare you, ghosts were known to appear on certain nights. Ooh. Much like the weather outside, the foyer was overcast with shades of gray. Perhaps by deliberate design, the architect had chosen not to include any lights in the entrance area. The ceiling was 2 floors high. The only light in the room came from the skylight. It was particularly gloomy on rainy days. On moonless nights, it was like the world itself ceased to be. Ako decided the drawing room to the east would be a good place to rest, but knowing that she would not be able to relax until she changed clothes, she started up the stairs. The stairs curled up the wall to the 2nd floor hall. There was a 3rd floor attic as well. It's accessible from the far end of the hall. She had never set foot there in 2 years she had lived here, though. This Kuwanji mansion was more or less divided into 2 wings east and west. Alco had been given the entire east wing, but 2 rooms were more than enough as far as she was concerned. She had no desire to open a door that would trap you in a storybook world or lead to an attic that only had been used for storage these last 5 years. Hmm. Okay. Ako's room was at the end of the east wing's long corridor. She had elected for a smaller room for no other reason than she thought it would be easier to clean. It was furnished with a large bed, her beloved mahogany desk, a wardrobe and chest for clothes, and two 9-shelf bookcases. That is all she brought with her from home. Her entire life of 16 years reduced to this. She borrowed the next room down for her own purposes.
そうだ。アリス
Oh yeah, I should check on the watchtower I got from Alice. She needed to see if the project she'd been working all night had borne fruit. The study next door served as proof of the life she had been living for the last year and how different that life was from the one she had lived before. It was not a room for the person she had been. It was a room for the person she would eventually become, a place of solitude that she could only enter, or so she thought. That only she could enter, or so she thought.
壊れてるけど
Wow, not only did it break, it vanished without a trace. Looks like I've still got a long way to go. Go ahead. Laugh it up, Robin.
笑いなさいよ、コマ撮り。
Oh my god, a literal Robin. The noisy neighbor had been intruded upon her sanctuary. Let me reread that. The noisy neighbor that had intruded upon her sanctuary flew away. While not exceptionally talented, Alco did not lack for effort and was not afraid to fail. One could have almost mistaken her for approach for optimism. She changed out of her uniform and returned to the first floor. Thighs. Anyway. Down the stairs, she opened the door to the east wing into the corridor, as dark as the cellar. The absence of windows meant it was pitch black without the lights on, so she flicked the switch and entered the nearby doorway. Ooh. Life without electricity. I don't even want to imagine it. It had been her idea to update the drawing room. The walls were decorated with extravagant patterns, and around the room were large, majestic sofas and a luxurious Persian rug. Amidst it all was a 30-inch television that seemed completely out of place. It stood looking over the other furniture like the emperor with no clothes. The mansion's owner would have rather done without it, but to a commoner like Alco, it was an essential commodity. They had fought over its presence at first, but eventually came to an agreement, and now mutually enjoyed this modern comfort. Hold on a bit, let me check Twitter real quick.
人のことは言えないか。うちも案外時代錯誤な家だった。
Hold on a bit, let me go ahead and look at Twitter. Let me share this around real quick. I know, just doing a momentary like Twitter share. There we go. Sorry about that. Guess I'm one to talk. I came from a pretty traditional household myself. Now in a somewhat pleasant mood, she decided to brew some tea. She boiled some water in the kitchen, prepared a teapot, and made herself some black tea. Hmm. With a flop, she sank into the sofa. She took a sip of her tea, then another. God, look at these production values, man. Like for Type Moon, like going from Fate Stay Night to this. It's freaking nice. This is nice. Lulled by the ticking of the clock, she took a third sip as she pondered how to spend her afternoon. The sofa almost seemed to be inviting her, and she sunk even further into its comforting embrace. Wah! Alco blearily opened her eyes as she lifted her body up from the cushions. This was no dream or delusion. At some point, a girl sat down across from her. Not the least bit surprised, she reached for her teacup. But the tea within had gone completely cold.
寝てた。
Did I doze off? He asked the question to the girl on the other side of the table. Yes. The girl answered without lifting her gaze. When silent, she could have been mistaken for a beautiful doll. The girl sitting on the opposite sofa was reading an old book. She had delicate limbs and pale, white skin. Nasu really loves his pale, white skin, does he? Not a hint of humanity emanated from her melancholic aura. She had darker hair than Naoko, and her icy eyes were focused on the pages in front of her. Her clothes resembled that of a nun, but were actually her school uniform. In Naoko's humble opinion, the gloominess suited her. She evoked something like out of a painting. There was something unreal about her, as if she were frozen in time. The white of her neck was so lovely that even Aoko found herself enchanted by it. And somewhere, out there, a person on Twitter is mad that she is so white. The girl was one of the haunted house's 2 residents. Her name was Alice Kawonji, and she was the same age as Aoko.
私、どれくらい寝てた？
How long was I asleep?
1時間とか。
At least an hour. You'll catch a cold if you keep sitting here.
風邪ひくわよ。
Keep sleeping here. Alice answered indifferently. Not that it bothered Aoko, who was now used to it. She looked at the clock on the wall and saw that it was already 7. She had been asleep for 2 hours. The day had been a rough one for her, and she had slept little the night before, so it was no surprise that she had dozed off for as long as she had.
起こしてくれてもよ。
You could have woken me up.
せっかくの紅茶が。
Now my tea is cold. Baka.
私が来た時は。
I was already cold by the time I got here. Oh, rather, it was already cold by the time I got here.
でしょうね。
I'm sure it was. I'm just saying. Aoko drank down the rest of the cold tea in one gulp, like a Chad. In the poorly heated Kuonji mansion, it was more than enough to clear her head and wake up.
こうなると。
Nothing quite beats this tea, not even the expensive kind for Britain.
おかえり。
Anyway, welcome home, Alice.
玉の贅沢
The universe seems determined to keep me from even the occasional luxury without you.
今日は薬日か定中
What is it about today?
ちょっと早い
Just my luck or what? At this rate, I am due for a temple visit. just to be safe. Rather, I'm gonna do a temple visit just to be safe. Anyway, Aoko shrugged her shoulders as if resigning herself to her fate.
それで何が
Something happened. After 2 years together, they knew each other quite well. Aoko had one way of asking questions, and Alice had another. Alice asked without raising her head, and Aoko gave her the details.
まず謝らなくちゃ
I should start by apologizing.
昨日徹夜で
The project I was working on all night was a total failure, and even though I only took my eyes off it for a second, it must have boiled over and been destroyed.
そうならないよ
Though I'll add that I stuffed the circulation codes as a precaution. Shuffled the circulation codes as a precaution. Aoko tried to laugh it off as if it were someone else's problem.
どういうこと
And
今朝休養が入って
something came up this morning, and I was called into school.
そこで
They made me show this transfer student around, and it took up my whole day. By the time I got back, it had vanished without a trace.
怒る
You're not mad, are you?
別に
Hardly.
青子の気分
If I got mad every time you broke something, there would be no end to the fighting.
ことになるでしょ代用品はあるから
I have more material, so you can just start over.
それより怒ってるのはあなた
However, aren't you really the one who's angry?
うん
Alice was very much on point today. It was true that despite outward appearances, Aoko was seething with frustration. That aside,
ええ
true enough, the transfer student I mentioned earlier was a real piece of work.
すごい山奥
Having been living deep in the mountains and has literally zero common sense, I know people say that the mountains are like an entirely different world, but I had no idea how true it was, Alice. Alice raised her head in response to hearing her name. But Aoko kept going on before she could get a word in edgewise. Aoko, after all, expected no sympathy in the first place.
初対面から尺に触
Didn't you get along well from the start? Oh, rather, we didn't get along well from the start, but things really took a turn for the worse when I took him to the classroom.
そいつ教室で教
He
師
apparently thought it was a place where you'd get one-on-one tutoring, but that's not at all. But that's not all. I mean, you're never going to believe this.
あので
What do you think he asked when I politely explained what a classroom is to him?
そいつなんて言ったと思うそれで青崎他の教室は何に使うんだ
What do you think he... But then, what are the other classrooms for?
ですって
Unbelievable, right?
教室に他
I
の
mean, a classroom is a classroom.
なんていうか
And no matter how vague or unhelpful anything I said was, he just kept nodding.
何も疑問に思わ
It's like he was just taking everything at face value. I don't know if he just lacks an imagination or never uses it.
まあ
Anyway, he at least seemed to grasp most of what I told him at the first time around. I suppose he's not a complete idiot. I did call him Baka a lot, though.
あなたが人を批評するのは珍しい
It's rare to see you so judgmental.
そういうだ
Is it really worth getting worked up over someone like that?
みじんたりとも気
I
にしない
couldn't care less about him.
けど
I'm just worried he'll screw up somehow.
間違いをしでかすのかちょっと心配なだけ
By the way, how long is this chapter? By the by. What he was really worried about, what she was really worried about was having to clean up that mess if and when it happened. That had to be it. If not, it would mean she had no real idea why she would not get him out of her head. Why she could not get him out of her head, rather.
とにかく変なやつなの
Well, he was a weirdo, alright. You two could probably hit it off great. You two would probably hit it off great.
三問一回はいいこと
Another world in the mountains doesn't sound so bad. But from her eyes, it was clear that the question of whether they would get along was irrelevant, given that they would never meet in the first place. Ako gave a non-committal response.
ところでアリス
Anyway, what have you been reading?
霊的深海
A book about spiritual evolution based on the spiritual diary.
あ
Ah, Swedenborg, huh?
あそんな
Is that really worth reading again?
新書なら退屈
I wouldn't bother if it were the original, but this is a knockoff.
彼の欠点
It exaggerates the pros and cons of Swedenborg's style and reads like a well-written adventure. Having the secret organization Kant standing in his way was a nice addition.
筆跡は
The handwriting of the notes in the margin belongs to your grandfather, by the way.
へえ
I had no idea what he was. I had no idea he was into that sort of thing. He had a great sense of humor. I really miss him. Aoko seemed nostalgic over her now deceased grandfather.
あなたのおじいさん
He just contacted you this last summer, didn't he?
よしてよ
Do we really have to go there? Why can't dead stay dead? Aoko sighed and laid back on the sofa. The soft cushions caved in under her weight.
話は戻るけど
As I was saying, Alice shot a glance at Aoko. Her body, buried in the sofa, remained still as a corpse. It was clear Aoko had tuned out of the conversation. Alice silently chastised her with a look. The more she thought about it, the less important the events of the day seemed to become. If she just ignored Alice, the conversation would end there. They would eventually get up and leave today's mistake unresolved for another day. However, that's not the kind of person Naoko Aozaki was.
いいわよ何
Yeah, what is it? She asked, still lying down.
今日できなかったの
It's upsetting that you failed today.
だから反
Like I said, I'm thinking about it.
学校優先は一
I need to focus on becoming a full-fledged mage before thinking about school. I know that.
ならいいけど
I hope you do. The coldness in her voice made Aoko gnash her teeth. She knew what Alice wanted to say. She knew better than anyone. The veneer she wore for school was different than the way she lived at home. While it could be called hiding in plain sight, Alice thought it was silly. And what the silence told her was,
覚悟を決めろって言う
make up your mind already. I know. Today's failure was not a colossal one. She just happened to upset the delicate balance between her home and school lives, chasing one at the expense of the other. And yet the careless mistake was a clear sign of Aoko's lack of commitment.
アリスは関係ない
This doesn't concern Alice.
私
It's my decision to make. She had only known for sure for the last year and a half. But she had a hunch she had a hunch for as long as she could remember. Make the choice and the day will come. It was a little wonder that her morals and conscience had been stripped away. Aoko pushed herself back up. She was met by Alice's cold beauty and wordless gaze.
OK アリス来週
Okay, Alice, we could do it next week.
それでいいんでしょ
That work for you?
ええ青子
As long as it works for you. Aoko could not help but shake her head, feeling like she was hearing something similar for the second time that day. Sorry. Clear my throat. Even in the comfort of her own, she could not banish the thoughts that country boy. Even in the comfort of her own, she could not banish the thoughts of that country boy from her mind.
じゃあ下準備はよろしくね
I'll let you set it up
私は
then.
まだできない
It's still beyond my abilities.
場所は例の公園
Should we do it at the park?
妥当な線ね
Do what at the park?
でももう一軒の方は
Sure, the line there is suitable enough, but what about the other thing?
そっちの方が急務じゃない
Isn't that a more urgent concern?
時と場合
It depends on the conditions. I'll let you know if there are any changes into the woods. After that brief exchange, Alice returned attention to the book on her lap. Shop talk was over. Now they could return to their normal relationship as roommates. Alco grabbed the remote and turned on the TV. Since Alice was busy reading, Alco decided to tune to a variety show that had already started. Ah. Alice started to speak out suddenly, but suddenly cut herself off. One of her delicate hands raised to her mouth. She would always cut herself off at the second she realized she was about to say something trivial. Sometimes her self-restraint would hit too late, and she would make a gesture like the one she was making now. It occurred to Alco that the "ah" sound her cute little roommate made just now was different from the "wah" she blurted in times past. What is it? Alco turned down the volume on the TV. Her intense eyes lit up like those of a mischievous cat. It's nothing, really, but what? Alice looked away bashfully, not knowing if she could bring it up or not. It was times like these that her expression carried a real warmth and surprising charm. If she could not hear her, if she could see her in this moment, Alice's father would have to admit that her name suited her perfectly. It's just that I saw something strange on my way home and wanted to tell someone about it. Alco nodded, beckoning her to continue. It's silly, really, but I just can't make sense of it no matter how much I think about it. Alco, do you have any idea why a man-sized cat would be riding around town, delivering meals to people? Ooh. For a second, Alco thought Alice was trying and failing miserably to make a joke again. One would think that about anyone, really. But she seemed completely serious. Even if Alice's sense of humor fell flat for Alco, the story already sounded more fanciful than Alice's usual attempt at jokes. Alco concluded that a roommate was talking about something she had actually seen. Jesus Christ. There are a few things about that. There are a few things off about that. Maybe we should break it down. Let's not. Even I can think of a few mundane explanations. I'm just asking someone I can't figure out why somebody would do that. I'm just asking because I can't figure out why somebody would do that. Maybe it's as simple as someone is just dressing up in a finely crafted cat suit to deliver food for a restaurant. I'm more worried about the person doing it than the reasons, personally. Alice nodded tentatively at her words. But whatever it does for them, I guess. In a world of people like us and weirdos that live in the mountains like hermits, there's no telling what kinds of freaks are out there. I personally would have just gone up to them and asked them what they were doing. Alice's gaze drifted at that. A delivery cat riding through neighborhoods in the evening. Sounds like something straight out of a fantasy story. Hey, what should we do for dinner tonight? Speaking of delivery, maybe we should order in. Alco loved getting takeout, and her face glowed as she spoke. They had no hard rules for dinner, but if one of them was in the mood to cook, they made it a point to make enough for two. At the very worst, this meant entire weeks without dinner, but the two of them agreed that this was the system that worked best for them. Whether they found cooking to be too much effort or simply liked ordering out, nights like this one were a common occurrence, much to the chagrin of the restaurants of Misaki Town. Delivery to the mansion meant coming all the way up to the top of this hill, the source of their disgruntlement. It's still before 8, so we're good. I'm really in the mood for tongetsu tonight. I haven't had their tsukimi soba in ages. I love Chinese food. Is that what is that a joke, or are they actually eating like Chinese food? Like, are they gonna order something? I'm a dumbass. So the Hungry Student Council president took out. Bleh, let me restart that. The Hungry Student Council president took our many menus and excitedly looked for anything that stood out. I assume that's supposed to be out. Okay. Alice casually responded without sparing so much as a glance. Sorry, but I've already had dinner. The fiend! You betray me, Alice! What a betrayal. With those words, Alco froze. All deliveries required a minimum of 2 items. She was out of luck without an accomplice. Why not just order 2 things? And, eat it for yourself? Or save it for later? Don't you have a refrigerator? I mean, you're fit, you're not gonna get fat overnight. You could eat 2 things and still maintain a good figure. Cruel society have decided it couldn't be bothered to deliver to a princess who only ordered a single serving of food. Again, just save the second serving. Incidentally, to counteract orders from the Hilltop Mansion, the restaurants have declared the minimum number of orders will be 3 starting next year. Alco and Alice were still in the dark to this fiendish change in direction. Traitor! Is that why you were late getting back? Between the bus ride and the walk, the trip home takes only 20 minutes. I should have known something was up when you didn't get home before 5 o'clock. Unfortunately for Alco, she had been too out of it to even remember that she had been the one who'd fallen asleep. For the record, I had bronchitis a while back. Still recovering. Talk about Ice Queen. I thought it was clear that either of us got food, we would bring enough home for the other person. Didn't I bring back something for you when I ate out last time? It was unknown how serious Alco was being, but she was visibly angry. She had already woken up hungry that morning, and from the time she was called into school until now, she had consumed nothing but tea. It was a small miracle that her stomach was not growling. She knew it was not her fault, but she persisted, wanting to get revenge on Alice for scolding her earlier. By last time, you mean the time you went into the city and ate sushi but only came back with a plastic bag full of convenience store food? That time? Alco had kicked a hornet's nest. So what? It was better than nothing, wasn't it? There are times when you'd be better off saying nothing at all. Alice's icy gaze pierced right through her. Alco had certainly crossed the line by going on and on about how the sushi circled around the restaurant while Alice ate her convenience store meal. But new things fascinated her, and she couldn't contain her curiosity toward the conveyor belt sushi shops that started popping up at the time. They were nothing short of miraculous. But even honesty can be a sin, given the right circumstances. Fine, I get it. Does this at least mean we're even now? Alice went back to her book without so much as recognizing the question. The fact that she did not confirm it made Alco anxious. Well, today has been a total disaster. Guess I'll whip up something in the kitchen. She stood up, announcing her intent to no one in particular. God, I need to learn how to read. Oh, almost forgot to ask. Where did you end up eating anyway? Alice's hand froze on her current page. So she suddenly shut the book she was reading and stood up, as if at wit's end. She walked across the drawing room with her book in hand. When she reached the door, she stopped and turned toward Alco. You really want to know? Sure. Alco nodded timidly, cowed by Alice's sudden vigor. Alice continued her matter-of-fact way. The cat gave me one of his leftover deliveries. And with that brief response, she left the room. Holy crap. Let's save, boy. This is a long one. That was a long one. Oh yeah, baby. How many chapters are there, by the way? Yes, I got a trophy. As for whether or not I want to continue, let's see, the stream has been going on for almost 3 hours now. So, let me see. Well, I'm hungry. I haven't really eaten much since breakfast. So, yeah, it looks like Mr. Inuhanyo 123. It looks like now would be a good time to stop. Wow, that was like, this is definitely a different, like, you know, I was not expecting, this direction, to be the case. I mean, okay, what I mean to say is, I know Type Moon visual novels are known for their slice of life. Fate Stay Night is, of course, partly a slice of life. I guess even the original Tsukihime is as well, to an extent. But so far, this has been surprisingly, like, different, like, compared to those two, as far as, like, tone and overall, direction. Story wise, I don't know where it's going because it's only been one chapter. But so far, this has been like an entertaining read. I suspect that this is going to be a long story, and admittedly, I'm going to be busy with work for the rest of the week, so I most likely will not be able to, like, stream until next week. As far as, like, continuing this, I'm going to be busy with gigs, but for the time being, so far, I am really enjoying this. This has been entertaining. It's definitely an entertaining read so far. Anything you guys want to say before I end the stream? Any notes that I should know about, regarding the story coming up, like nothing that's like spoiler. No spoilers or anything, but like, give me an idea of what to expect in the future or something. Oh, and for the record, I do have, like, a tip jar. I know this is kind of like something, kind of weird, but in the description, I do have, like, I decided to, like, to set up a Stream Elements tip jar. So It's there for anybody who cares about that sort of thing. It's not really necessary, but we are liking your commentary. Just be aware that we're still setting up characters in the town for a bit, but it's still good. Yeah, it's going to be a while, before I can like continue Witch on the Holy Night. But so far, I'm liking what I'm reading. So let's see, what time is it? It's 1:58 p.m. where I'm at. So we've been streaming for almost a full 3 hours. I suppose that's going to be it for now. I won't be able to stream until next week, until when everything is like over with. So I guess until then, Kitty Vickies, this is going to be me signing out. Until next time, stay safe. Be sure to actually drink your vitamin C. Be sure to, not be like that. To not be like Sojiro. Being a baka. And yeah. Until next time, this is Hollow of Dawn signing out. Have a good one.